Ava pushed open the boutique door with hesitant hands, the faint chime of the bell overhead sounding much louder in her ears than it probably was. The air inside was cool and fragrant, like peonies and polished marble, and the light hit the glass display cases just right, making everything inside glitter like starlight. It was the kind of place she used to walk by in high school and stare into, wondering who got to live a life with diamonds dangling from their ears. She didn't belong here. She knew that the second she walked in. The saleswoman behind the counter glanced up from her phone, flicked her eyes over Ava's simple cotton dress and scuffed sandals, then quickly returned to scrolling. Ava's fingers curled around the strap of her worn leather bag, heart thudding. But she had a reason to be here. 2 days ago, her husband, Cole, had mentioned, almost offhandedly, that he wanted to buy her something special for their anniversary. Ava, never one for extravagance, had brushed it off. "Don't go overboard," she'd said with a laugh. "Something shiny, maybe. But not too shiny." He'd kissed her forehead and said, "Then you pick it. I'll love whatever you choose." So here she was. "I'm just looking," Ava murmured to no one in particular, slowly approaching a glass case filled with delicate gold bands and diamond solitaires. Each piece looked too expensive to touch. But she bent closer, captivated by a thin ring with a small sapphire nestled in the center. It reminded her of the ocean view from the motel she and Cole stayed at after eloping. "You can't afford that," a voice snapped behind her. Ava turned, startled. The saleswoman had finally left her perch behind the counter and now stood far too close, arms crossed, her lips tight. "Excuse me?" Ava asked softly, her cheeks flushing. "I said," the woman repeated, enunciating each word like Ava might not understand English, "we don't do window shopping in here. If you're not buying, I'll have to ask you to leave." Ava blinked, heat rushing to her face. I am buying. Or, well, I'm picking something out. My." The woman raised her hand, cutting Ava off. "Right. Let me guess. Your boyfriend is paying. Or maybe your sugar daddy." She smirked. "Look, I don't have time for this." A few customers nearby turned to watch. Ava felt her stomach twist. "I'm sorry," Ava whispered, backing toward the door. "I didn't mean to." "You meant to loiter and gawk," the woman snapped. "Now go." Ava stepped out into the sunshine, blinking against the light. The door shut behind her with a harsh click, like the world had sealed itself off from her again. She stood there for a moment, stunned, heart pounding in humiliation, tears threatening. She hadn't even told the woman who her husband was. Not that it would have mattered. The boutique didn't see people like her. They saw the worn sandals, the frizzy hair she'd tied back in a bun, the quiet, unsure voice. They didn't see her. And that used to be fine. Until now. She walked back home, a modest townhouse in a quiet part of town where neighbors waved and dogs barked and no one cared whether your dress was from a thrift store or a designer label. Cole wasn't home yet, still out on calls or meetings or whatever business meetings millionaires had. Funny how the world still saw her as the girl who used to serve coffee, not the woman married to one of the city's most successful private investors. But Cole never made her feel that way. When he walked through the door that evening and saw the look on her face, the smile slid off his lips like snow melting under sunlight. "What happened?" he asked, setting down his keys. Ava shook her head. "It's stupid. Forget it." He stepped closer. "You've been crying." "I just went to that place," she said, voice trembling. "The boutique you mentioned. I thought I'd look. But they kicked me out. Said I didn't belong." Cole was still, eyes narrowing slightly. He didn't ask for names. Didn't ask what she did or said. He just pulled her into his chest and whispered, "You belong anywhere you want to be." And the next morning, the boutique was no longer open to the public. The door bore a new sign, "Closed for private event." And inside, the same saleswoman stood frozen in place, mouth slack, as Cole Walker stepped through the door, tailored suit crisp and expensive, hand in hand with his wife. The girl they called Nobody. By noon that day, the boutique had gone silent. It wasn't just closed, it was transformed. The window displays were gone, replaced with simple white drapes. Inside, the cases were uncovered but the jewelry was untouched, like a shrine waiting for its high priest. The employees, all except one, stood in the back, whispering nervously behind velvet curtains. The saleswoman from the day before, her name was Elise, stood frozen behind the counter, lips tight, heart pounding in her ears. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Then the door opened. And in walked him. Cole. She recognized him immediately, anyone who worked in retail in this part of the city did. Cole was the kind of man whose face ended up in glossy financial magazines, always surrounded by glass towers or sleek sports cars, always described with phrases like self-made and brilliant strategist. He was the kind of man who made deals that shifted industries before breakfast. And he wasn't alone. The woman at his side, her hair loose today, wearing the same brown sandals and a long, plain dress, was the one Elise had kicked out less than 24 hours ago. Ava. Cole's wife. Elise went pale. Cole said nothing at first. He simply walked the perimeter of the store like a man inspecting a new property, because he was. His fingers lightly grazed the cases, his sharp eyes noting everything from the lighting to the outdated register behind the counter. The room felt colder with him in it. Not angry. Just controlled. Measured. Powerful. Ava stood beside him, not smug, not triumphant, just quiet. The way she always was. When Cole finally spoke, his voice was calm. Almost gentle. Is there a reason my wife wasn't treated like a customer yesterday? Elise scrambled. I didn't know who she was. I thought. You thought what? He asked, head tilting. That she wandered in off the street? That she didn't look like someone who could belong here? Elise swallowed. It's not personal. We just get a lot of people coming in who don't buy anything. Cole stepped closer. And what made you decide she was one of those people? Ava laid a hand lightly on his arm. Cole, she whispered. But Cole wasn't yelling. He didn't raise his voice. That made it worse. This place has potential, he said softly, almost to himself now. Poor leadership. Great product. Elegant space. It just needs better values. Then he turned to Ava. It's yours now. You decide what to do with it. Elise blinked. What do you mean? I mean the paperwork was finalized this morning, Cole said without looking at her. I bought it. The boutique. The building. Everything in it. The silence hit harder than any outburst could have. Elise staggered back a step, and for a brief second, Ava actually felt sorry for her. But not enough to stop what came next. Underscore 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 underscore. The boutique reopened 2 weeks later under a new name, Sapphire and Sandalwood. No longer was it the sterile, intimidating showroom it once was. Ava changed everything, from the music, now soft acoustic guitar and jazz, to the velvet curtains that she replaced with warm cream linens that let in sunlight. She insisted on tea being offered to every guest, no matter what they looked like. She handpicked a new staff, hiring women who had been overlooked, single moms, older women, even a high school dropout with a love for gemology. The boutique started offering design-your-own-ring workshops, free consultations, and even quiet afternoons where people could just come in and look. Because Ava remembered what it felt like to be treated like an outsider. And now, she would make sure no one else felt that way again. But success didn't come without a price. One evening, Ava stayed late at the boutique, sitting at the front desk while Cole waited in the car out front. She was closing out the books, exhausted but proud, when Elise walked in. It had been weeks. Elise looked different, less polished. Her lipstick was smudged. She clutched a file folder to her chest like a lifeline. "I need a job," she said, without preamble. Ava didn't move. "You're bold to come back here." "I'm desperate," Elise whispered. "I've been blacklisted. No one in the district will hire me. Word travels fast." Ava nodded. "Yes, it does." "I know I messed up," Elise said, her voice cracking. "But I'm good at what I do. And I didn't know you were his wife. I just thought, you were nobody." Ava leaned back in her chair. The hurt was still there, tucked away under layers of new confidence, but it pulsed when Elise said that word again. "Nobody." "You looked at me," Ava said quietly, "and decided I didn't matter. I've lived my whole life being looked at that way." Elise was trembling now. "I've got 2 kids. I'm behind on rent. Please." A long silence stretched between them. Ava looked out the window where Cole's car waited, his silhouette still behind the wheel, patient and steady like always. And then, without a word, Ava stood, walked behind the counter, and reached under the desk. She pulled out a small card. "This is the name of a woman who just opened a place downtown," she said, handing it over. "She used to be a retail clerk like me. She knows what second chances look like." Elise took the card in shaking hands. "You won't hire me?" "No," Ava said softly. "But I won't ruin you either." As Elise left, shoulders hunched, Ava exhaled long and slow. The air in the boutique smelled like jasmine and old wood, and the sun was starting to set, washing the room in a soft golden hue. She didn't need revenge. She had something better now. A voice. A place. And people who saw her. Ava sat on the rooftop garden of their home, one Cole had insisted on building just for her, even though it was wildly impractical and expensive. A patch of sky, he'd said, for the girl who always looked up. It had roses climbing along the wrought iron railing, a soft bench swing, and fairy lights that lit up like fireflies in the dark. But tonight, it didn't feel like magic. It felt like pressure. Like she didn't deserve any of it. Below her, laughter drifted from the dining room where Cole was entertaining 2 clients, one of whom had commented on her boutique earlier that evening. "You've really turned her into something," the man had said to Cole, glass of whiskey in hand. "Quite the makeover story. You gave her a crown." Cole didn't laugh. He never did at things like that. But Ava had heard it. And it hit harder than she expected. Turned her into something. As if she hadn't already been something. As if her worth was borrowed, from him. The boutique was doing well, thriving, actually. Word had spread about the place that welcomed ordinary people. Couples who saved every penny to afford a simple gold ring. Women who came in alone, buying themselves something for the first time. Teens wide-eyed at the shimmer of possibility. It had become more than a store. It was a sanctuary. But still, the whispers followed her. She's lucky. She married up. She'd be nothing without him. Even some of her staff looked at her that way. Smiling, grateful, but always with that faint flicker in their eyes. The one that said, "You don't really belong in this world, do you?" And lately, Ava wasn't sure she did. She thought about her mother, long gone now, who worked double shifts at the laundromat and came home with cracked hands and a tired smile. Who once told Ava, "People will treat you like you don't matter. Just don't make the mistake of believing them." Ava had believed them anyway. For years. She looked at her reflection in the sliding glass door. The designer dress Cole had bought her. The necklace she'd picked out at her own boutique. The flawless curls from this morning's stylist appointment. And she still felt like the girl in the coffee shop apron, wiping counters and being invisible. Later that night, after their guests had left and the dishes were stacked in the sink, Cole found her sitting on the edge of their bed, still in the same dress. "Ava," he said gently. "You okay?" She looked up at him, this man who had changed her world, yes, but who had also seen her when she had nothing. Not when she became someone. But before. When she was just Ava. "I'm scared," she whispered. Cole knelt in front of her, his hands warm on her knees. "Of what?" "That I'm losing myself. That all this," she gestured around them, "is too big for me. That everyone was right. That I don't belong in the world we're living in now." Cole was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Do you want to know what I saw the first time I met you?" She blinked, surprised. "We've talked about that." "No," he said softly. "Not the version I tell other people. The real first time." He took a breath. "You were standing behind the counter at that coffee shop on 9th. I came in every day for 2 weeks before I ever said more than 2 words. You had this way of focusing on each person, really listening. You remembered names, how they liked their drink, which days they looked sad. You asked one guy about his wife's surgery, and you slipped a free muffin into a woman's bag when she clearly didn't have enough cash." Ava smiled faintly. She remembered none of that. "I thought, this girl has more grace in her fingertips than anyone I've ever met. And I knew right then," he said, eyes locking onto hers, "if I ever got the chance to sit across from her and hear her story, I'd be the luckiest man alive." Her throat tightened. "Why didn't you tell me that before?" "Because I didn't want to be the one reminding you of your worth. I wanted you to see it for yourself." Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. "I love you, Ava," Cole said. "Not because you've made the boutique a success. Not because you've changed. But because you haven't. You're still the girl who looks people in the eye. Who gives second chances. Who walks into rooms and tries her best, even when the world tells her not to bother." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I was going to wait for our anniversary," he said. "But now feels right." Ava opened it slowly. Inside was the same sapphire ring she'd admired in the boutique that first day, the one she'd been too afraid to ask about. "I never forgot how you looked at it," he said. "It reminded me of how you looked at life. Curious. Gentle. Like you were searching for something beautiful." She didn't say anything. Just flung her arms around him and held him like she was drowning and he was air. And maybe he was. That night, as they lay under the stars on the rooftop swing, Ava let herself believe she belonged. Not because of the money. Not because of the boutique. But because she'd finally stopped waiting for the world to approve of her. She was enough. She always had been. It had been almost a year since Ava first walked into the boutique as a nobody and was shown the door. Now, she stood inside that same boutique, her boutique, watching as a little girl, maybe 8 or 9, reached out with wide eyes toward a rose-gold necklace inside the glass case. The girl's fingers didn't touch the glass, just hovered, reverent. Ava smiled. "Would you like to try it on?" The girl turned quickly to her mother, who looked embarrassed, already shaking her head. "Oh, no, we're just looking. I don't want her to get fingerprints on anything." Ava knelt to the girl's level. "Do you know what I see when I look at you?" she asked gently. The girl shrugged shyly. "I see someone who knows beauty when she sees it. That's a gift. Don't ever let anyone make you feel bad for noticing beauty." She reached behind the counter and pulled out the necklace. The mother looked flustered. "I'm sorry, really, we can't afford." Ava held up a hand. "I'm not trying to sell it to you. I just think your daughter deserves to know what it feels like to wear something she dreams of." She fastened the chain around the girl's neck. The girl beamed, touching it with delicate fingers, then looked up at herself in the mirror, the way someone looks at a version of themselves they've never met before. Ava had worn that same expression once. And now, she made sure others could too. Later that evening, as the boutique closed and the last customer left, Ava sat alone in the quiet space. She looked around at the shelves, the warm lighting, the pieces handcrafted by women she had hired and mentored. She saw stories in each corner, first loves, reconciliations, self-gifts, memorials. It was more than jewelry now. It was a home for meaning. There was a knock at the glass door. A woman in her 50s stood outside, holding a small box. Her name was Nadine, one of Ava's first hires, the woman who had cried during her interview because she'd been turned down everywhere else for being too old and outdated. Ava opened the door and let her in. "I didn't want to leave this in your inbox," Nadine said. "I wanted to see your face when you opened it." Inside the box was a pendant, simple but elegant, a delicate silhouette of a crown made from brushed gold. On the back, etched in fine lettering, were the words, "You gave us our worth back." Ava's throat closed up. Nadine smiled, eyes wet. "You gave us something no one else would. A chance. A voice. Dignity. We wanted you to know, we see you too." The boutique held its one-year anniversary party 2 weeks later. Guests poured in, from newly engaged couples to retirees who had saved for months to buy something special. There were balloons tied to the door, a soft jazz band playing in the corner, and trays of finger foods from the local bakery. Cole stood beside Ava, his arm around her waist, his eyes filled with quiet pride. But he didn't speak for her. He never did. Ava stood at the small podium set near the front window. She wore the sapphire ring and the brushed gold crown pendant. "I used to think I had to change who I was to fit into places like this," she said. "But I was wrong." She looked around the room. "You don't have to dress a certain way. Or talk a certain way. Or prove yourself to anyone. You belong simply because you're here." People clapped, softly at first, then louder. But it was the stillness in the room that mattered most, that quiet moment when everyone felt what she meant. After the speech, a young man approached Ava. Nervous. Clutching a tiny box. "I'm proposing tonight," he said, voice shaking. "And this ring, it's not fancy. But I chose it here. Because you let me be real. Because you didn't care how much I spent." Ava took the box and looked inside. A modest silver band with a tiny emerald, nestled in velvet. She smiled. "She's going to say yes." He blinked. "How do you know?" "Because you saw her the way most people never get seen," she said, echoing the words Cole once told her. "And when someone sees you like that, it's hard not to fall in love." That night, as the lights dimmed and Cole drove them home under a canopy of stars, Ava leaned her head against the window. "You know," she said, "when I first walked into that boutique, I thought it was the end of something. A confirmation that I didn't belong." Cole glanced at her, hand resting on hers. "And now? Now I know it was the beginning," she said, voice steady. "Not of a makeover. Not of some fairy tale. But of me finding my own crown. And realizing I never needed anyone to put it on for me." Cole smiled. "You wear it well." She laughed softly, the sound light and free. "I do, don't I?" And in the dark, quiet hum of the car, Ava finally felt the peace she had spent her whole life chasing. Not because she'd proven anything. But because she'd stopped trying to. She was no longer the girl they called nobody. She was the woman who made everybody feel like somebody. And that, in the end, was the most priceless jewel of all.